Hello and welcome to another edition of The Daily. I'm Samantha Yarock here with Andrew Wiebe, and we had some midweek MLS action last night. Chicago Fire and Toronto FC tying 1-1 thanks to Robert Earnshaw and Dilly Duca. But this was, in Frank Lopez's mind, a must-win game for the Chicago Fire. What does this mean for their playoff run?
Well, I don't know that it's a must-win game in the grand scheme of things. They're still just a point out of that final Eastern Conference playoff spot, but they have two games coming up. The next two matches for them against New England and the Columbus Crew, both of those teams are teams that they're competing against for that fifth, perhaps fourth spot in the Eastern Conference. Things still there for them. There's still a possibility, but it's clear this team has to be better. They've got to get results. At Toronto is a place that you must win if you want to be a playoff team. They didn't do it. We'll have to see how it shakes out.
Well, Andrew, some strife for the other side, Toronto FC getting a letter from former Mayor David Miller saying he doesn't even want his season tickets anymore. What does this mean?
No, he doesn't, and he was one of their biggest supporters throughout the years, a guy that bled red there in Toronto. This is a big blow for them in a year that has had many. Of course, Kevin Payne leaving the club, just a disagreement on how it should go forward from an ownership level. Tim Lewicki has the reins now. It is all him. You've seen his track record with LA, with AEG. I think better times are to come for Toronto. The question is, how long will we have to wait for them? Not a lot going for them right now. I can understand why those fans are frustrated.
All right, well, you can catch both these teams back in action this weekend. Be sure to check out MLSsoccer.com for the schedule and complete coverage. Well, Tuesday night brought another edition of Dos a Zero, and it seems that today is going to bring something new for Mexico. The Mexican Football Federation has called for a press conference at 1 p.m. Eastern today, where it's expected that they're going to unveil a new manager.
Yeah, Tena is likely out here. He said after that loss to the U.S. that they would sit down on Wednesday and make a decision, he and his entire coaching staff. It appears that decision means that he is no longer going to take charge. Just one game at the head of Mexico. Now it looks like, this is speculation of course, that it will fall to former Monterrey manager Manuel Vucetich. Of course, MLS fans will know him from CONCACAF Champions League battles, but he has two games to turn this disaster of a hexagonal campaign around. The two games: at home against Panama, where Mexico hasn't won in the Hex, and then at Costa Rica. Neither of one of those will be easy. Costa Rica has qualified, so perhaps they could put a weakened team out against Mexico. Maybe won't be as motivated, but look, it's going to take a win at home. They must win in Azteca, and as I said, they haven't done it yet. There is so much pressure on El Tri. We're just going to have to wait and see. I think right now, best case scenario, they're going to be in a playoff with Oceania. That is certainly not where we expect that team to be.
All right, well, stay tuned to MLSsoccer.com for complete coverage of this press conference and Mexico's bid for the World Cup. Well, Andrew, some interesting reports coming out of Canada yesterday pointing to the fact that the Golden Boot leader, Marcus Di Vaio, may not be playing in MLS next year.
Yeah, I think this is not a huge surprise to a lot of people that's seen Marcus Di Vaio go back and forth between Italy over his time in MLS. Apparently this comes down to family. He went back to Italy earlier this year, and they said that it was a family issue that he was taking care of. Apparently his children, his wife, are no longer in Montreal, and that has to be difficult for a player of his stature. We'll have to see what he decides. Montreal does have an option for him in 2014, but of course that will come down to a decision between the player and the club.
More news out of Canada. The Canadian national team may be getting some reinforcements.
Yeah, it seems there are some MLS stalwarts that would like to suit up for the Maple Leafs. A few guys in Montreal, Felipe, as well as Hassoun Camara. And then over in Vancouver, you've got guys like Camilo and Gershon Coffey, all kind of hinting that one day they'd like to do that. Of course, right now, not citizens. That has to be finished first. But Canada head coach Benito Floro said, look, we will take them if they're interested, if they're committed to being Canadians. We want players like that. Something to watch as the year continues.
Yeah, definitely something that I think that would help this Canadian team.
Certainly.
Well, that's all we have for The Daily today. We'll be back tomorrow with more.